Hey, it's Jacob. Welcome to this new video, and today I want to talk to you about the reason why you don't need a programming background in order to build AI products. So, AI products creation. Why you don't need a programming background. And you might have a few questions and wonder, like, what do you mean you don't need a programming background? Like, you need to know a few things, right? Like there are tons of things. Let's take the example of like the managing data, because if you're gonna train a neural network in order to build an AI product, you need to know how to manage data, right? Well, not necessarily. Yes, you're gonna need to learn how to manage data, but like data is, you can use a very simple data set, and a data set can be as simple as a CSV file. You can just use that and it's going to work. Basically, all you have to do is you take a CSV file here and you have the inputs here and the labels there, and then that's your data set, and basically you import those data into your environment and you train your neural network on that. This is extremely simple. It doesn't require any type of weird data management type of programming background or anything. This is just plain and simple lines of code where you can just import a CSV file. Like, that's super simple. And you don't need to have a programming background in order to start doing that. You can just basically learn the lines of code. Not even learn, just copy and paste the lines of code that are doing that, and that's it. So again, programming language for managing data, this is not an option. This is not something you need. So now you might also think about like cleaning and manipulating data. Like this is, but you need to know about those complicated libraries. Basically in Python, you have like Panda, that's one library, or you have NumPy. That's kind of like for mathematical and statistical libraries to manipulate data. And quite frankly, you don't need any of that. So this is definitely not needed in order to move forward and manipulate data. You can manipulate data with just lists. You create a list. A list, if you don't know what it is, it's basically one of the most basic tool in Python. It's really simple to learn, and it's basically, if you want to know about it, that's a list. Let's say you have like data number 1, data number 2, and then you have data number n. Well, that's a list, and that's all you need to know. If we call that x, then if you want to get data number 2 here, all you have to do is x, and here you put like 1, and then you'll get data number 2. That's the only thing you need to remember about, like, that's a specificity of Python. They count from 0. So this is 0, and this is 1, and this is n minus 1. So if you want to get here d1, what do I need to put here? Well, I think you got it. It's 0, because all you need to do is refer to the index, and that's it. That's all you need to know. You know everything you need to know about lists in Python. So again, no need for weird libraries in Python. No need for that. No, you just need to know like the basic programming skills that you've already learned in this video, and that's it. Now let's clear that up, and there is another thing that people are talking about. It's Git or GitHub, and this is basically a version control type of software. Basically, it's going to give you like different versions of your code. It's going to keep track of the version. So version 0, let's say this is the version that you worked on like on day 1. This is version 2. oops, let's do that. Version 1, let's say, because we started at 0. So this is day 2, version 2. This is day 3. And that's pretty much what it's going to give you, right? Why do you need GitHub? You need GitHub if you're working on code and then you get stuck and then you realize, oh, I can't really go back, or it's going to require too much time in order to go back to rework the code in order to make it work. And it's better to just like take that previous version and then work on this version in order to make it work, basically. Because like you implemented a few things and then you also broke a few things, but like you know what to implement now, but you can't really repair what you broke, basically. So you take version 3 and then you just implement the things that you know how to do without breaking those things that you broke in the past, right? In this one. That's the entire point of GitHub if you're working by yourself. If you're the only person, because GitHub can also like help you work with a team if you have a big team, but most likely you don't. You're just doing it by yourself. So if that's the case, then I'm not going to get into that discussion because it's not even necessary in that case to use GitHub. But like when you're alone, this is the only value that is added by using GitHub. And now, I mean, really think about it. Like if that's the value here, let me circle that in green so that you see it. That's the value of GitHub. Like, let me ask you the question, like, how much is that worth it, really? Like, first of all, the first thing I can tell you is you can just take the code and then basically work harder in order to recover from the things you broke. That's one of the things, but I wouldn't even recommend that. I would just recommend, well, you do that manually. Like, you don't have to have a very sophisticated tool in order to keep versions of your software. All you have to do is basically put one version on day 1 and put it in a different folder, and that's all that is, you know. Now, it's not as sophisticated as GitHub, sure, but again, do you really need that level of sophistication? Because it's going to take a long time in order to work. There is two things, right? You need to know about GitHub here. One, it's going to take time to learn, and 2, it's going to take time to use. Using it is a little bit of a heavy process. You need to commit your modifications, then push them, then merge if you have conflicts and stuff like that. I'm not going to get into the details, but basically the main point here is, first, you don't necessarily need it. 2, you don't necessarily is it worth it if you need it? And 3, is it worth it to learn how to use it if you need it? Right? You need to know about all of those things if you are going to invest the time. You don't. No one has like an infinite amount of time. Things that are better theoretically are not necessarily better in practice. This, yes, sure, GitHub is better theoretically if you don't think about the rest, and if you provided that you have an infinite amount of time, provided that you have an infinite amount of resources. But in the real world, that's not how we think. If it's going to make you sacrifice your time, and your time is valuable, then it's not worth it. You need to take time into account here. So just let's move on. And basically all you need to remember here is this is not needed either. You don't need GitHub. Now let's move on to the next one and clear that up. So what about object-oriented programming? Object-oriented programming are what's used in order to create neural networks. Now, this is a good thing to use you can do neural networks without using like object-oriented programming at all. So first of all, that's not needed. But I would even recommend to use an object to create a neural network because it gives you a little bit more flexibility if you want to add layers or like change basically the structure of the neural network. So it's good to actually use objects for doing that. However, you don't need to know about like the entire theory of object-oriented programming, because there are a lot of things to know, like a lot of different things that you need to know for creating very, very complicated objects and working with that. But you don't need that. All you need to do is a very simple objects to create layers and neurons. And basically, so these are, I'm not going to get into the details of object-oriented programming, just because that's not the point of this video. But like, that's all you need, right? Layers and neurons, and how to use the neural network. Basically, like, use the object. Use the objects, and that's all you need, right? This is called, that's called a method, but like, you don't even need to know the name of it. All you need to do is basically know, like, that's how you use the object. So this is actually a very, very small part of object-oriented programming. And you don't need to know more than that in order to apply and create your own neural network in a way that is extremely flexible, and like, it's like very, very, it's not a simplified way of working with neural network at all. Like, it's actually the very flexible way where you can do everything, but at the same time, you don't need to know a lot. So the main point here, object-oriented programming, this is not needed either, okay? So let's move on to the next one and clear that up. What about machine learning? There are a lot of algorithms that are used in machine learning in order to make things learn by themselves, right? Based on like a data set. And you might think like, oh, neural network, or like at the end of the process of learning about machine learning, right? Like, if you are, like, you spend years and years learning, you spend years and years learning that, and then at the end of it, you go, oh, okay, now I can start learning about neural network. And that's not really how it works. Why? Because the machine learning algorithms and the optimization algorithms that are used in machine learning that basically help in order to learn things. That's basically the main thing that is behind it. Then those algorithms, they are already included into the neural networks, but like in a way that you are not going to have to program them yourself. This is already used, that has already been done into the way that we're using neural networks. So all you have to do is basically use the already existing algorithm in order to train your neural network without knowing what is inside of it. You don't modify the algorithm that already exists. So, and that is, by the way, that's not something that, that's again, not a simplification. Like, people that are actually working on that, they're not getting into like the weird algorithms that have been implemented by people that are like, that's their entire life is about like optimizing those types of algorithms. So, I mean, a random person that just want to create things like that, they're not going to modify the algorithm. That's not your job, and you're not good. Quite frankly, it's going to take years if you're going to want to do that. If you're going to want to use, like, optimize an already existing algorithms that has been there for like a long time, it's going to take years to do that, to get to that level. So the point is, people think that it is there is value to understanding how to modify those types of algorithms, but like in the real world, we don't use that, and we don't even look at it. So again, machine learning, you don't need it either, like nothing at all, right? And again, just there are things you need to learn about neural networks if you want to use it, but like all of that, everything that I'm talking about here, it's mostly about like how to basically know about all the minutiae, or know about like what's under the hood of the neural networks. But like, this is not about using the neural networks. It's about building what is inside the neural networks, which has already been done. So you don't need that. So let's move on to the next one. The next one is going to be like, what about the sigmoid activation? I'm not even sure that's how you spell it. Activation function. And it's like, this is actually something that is being taught a lot when you're doing like the traditional approach and the academical approach of learning about like neural networks. And again, those types of things are like basically inside the way a neural network works, right? Like basically a neural network has like layers. So let's say I'm gonna do multiple layers here. So it's just a simplified representation of it. Here you have your neural network, and basically the sigmoid activation function is going to go here. You know, when you move from one neuron to the next, that's basically where you're going to use that. And it's like, really, you don't need to know how that works in order to create your first neural network. Just like, you don't need to have an opinion on like the best activation function in order to create your first neural network. If it works, it's good enough at first. Then maybe down the line, if you see that there are problems with your activation function, which might be the case, right? Then sure, like you can start like investigate these types of activation functions and look for optimizing so that your training might go a little bit faster, or that you might make sure that your data is not like overfitting. You're not overfitting the data basically, or like all of those weird things. Of course, like that might be a problem that you're encountered down the line, but like these are optimizing things. This is not about creating your first neural network. So I want to make sure that we have the order correct, right? Like this is the order matters is basically the point that I'm trying to make. And here you do not need to know about the sigmoid function either. So again, those are the reasons why you don't need a programming background in order to build your first AI product. You can just get started right away and use what has been already implemented and then move forward. And from there, once you know how to use, that's the reason why I wanted to make that video too, because like this is taking time away from you learning about the things that actually matter. What are the things that actually matter? And let me clear that up just to emphasize what I'm saying here. It's taking time away from learning how to use the neural networks or the existing tools that you already have. It's about learning how to use, not learning about like how it's done under the hood when you don't need it. It's using the things that you have right now. So that's it for this video. I hope it was helpful, and if you want to be part of my contacts, just click on the link in the description and you'll get exclusive content from me. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next time.